So hello everyone, I know I'm 15 minutes late. I just did an entire live and I don't think that it went through. So I'm going to do another live where I'm going to tell you pretty much exactly what I just spoke about. And if anyone is still left listening, you are wonderful for hanging around when the first live did not go through. Gotta love Facebook. And if not, well, then you can just come back and watch it later. So thank you for joining me today, again, perhaps. Welcome back to Free the Wisdom to Heal the Body and our Mind Body Mondays with me, Cassandra McGowan. Today is our final exploration of this 6-video series on parts of the body and their relationship to our thoughts and feelings, especially as it relates to illness and pain. If you wish to know more about me or my business, I invite you to watch the other 5 videos where I have spoken briefly about my 21-year background in holistic medicine, shamanism, health psychology, and traditional Chinese medicine, and many other forms of therapy which relate to our thoughts and our pain, which is why I created Thought Pain Therapy. There is a Japanese poet who's a marathoner, Haruki Murakami, and one of the things that he said is, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So for me, this means that we will all struggle with illness, injury, and diseases throughout our lives. But the difference between the ones that heal quickly and the ones that linger chronically relate to our amount of suffering. Suffering is a choice, and by reframing or removing the thoughts that increase or continue it, we can eliminate it and just deal with the pain alone, because let's be honest, that's enough. Today, we're going to talk about arms, hands, neck, head, and face, as well as what I will explore with you together going forward. And as you know, watching and learning with me through these Facebook Lives is totally free. So I greatly encourage you to share these videos with anyone that you feel could benefit from having alternative methods to deal with their pain or illness. So feel free to invite them to the group, as I would love to grow this community and a tribe to be a resource for all who struggle. My mission is to bring healing and hope to anyone who feels trapped in their suffering, because I've been there. And perhaps if you like, one live I will share with you how I healed from what I was told by Western medicine was an incurable autoimmune disease. So let's begin by talking about arms and hands today. It follows nicely after last week's talk on shoulders. The thought-pain relationship with arms and hands connect with their abilities. And by this I mean how we use our arms and hands to express our feelings by reaching out and holding, stroking, giving, taking, healing, grasping, pinching, striking, or even slapping. If we feel unable to express our heart's truth, be it joy, love, anger, sadness, frustration, through our arms and hands, and cannot find another way healthfully to release this energy, then it can lead to pain. In addition, we also use our arms and hands to channel and express ourselves creatively, like painting, drawing, writing, sewing, crafting, sculpting, and everything else you can think of. So when we feel stifled creatively, that we cannot put our hands on something, or are unable to free the creative energy of our hearts to allow it to come into our arms and hands, then this can lead the way to an energetic imbalance that leads to injury. Does that make sense? Now, onto the neck. Pain in the neck is often directly correlated to a relationship with someone who we might describe as a pain in our neck. Feeling unable to express ourselves or again release the energy of frustration can lead to injury Now, another, somewhat larger connection to our necks brings to mind an image of a horse with blinders on. It's a space or a place in your life and your beliefs that you are unable to do or go anywhere but straight ahead, forging through whatever issues or situations you don't like because you feel that you are bereft of choices. You might feel limited and struggle because of this perceived limitation and don't know how to take off those blinders and see other options. This condition, when it takes place within myself, reminds me of an old song from my youth called Should I Stay or Should I Go? From the punk group called The Clash. We let our minds trap us into a belief that we only have two choices. But this is always a fallacy. We have so many more. From the obvious options of other possibilities to changing our personal belief system about the circumstances in general. And yes, challenging your beliefs rather than letting them stand, and in doing so limit and cause you pain, is always a harder choice. But in the end, it's the most freeing. And if you haven't heard of The Work by Byron Katie, I highly recommend you pick it up. She offers 4 questions to help change your thoughts and your life. Now, on to the head and the two most common issues, headaches and vertigo. Now, both are generally brought on by a feeling of overwhelm, often relating to responsibility and the inability to perform as we've expected of ourselves. Now, if we think back to our human beginnings, why working with our bodies on a daily basis was essential. Our minds filled with thoughts and heuristics of common actions, survival, comfort tasks. Now, however, we're often completely static in our day, sitting in front of a computer screen, phones, tablets, and TVs. And instead of physical prowess, our survival and success is dependent in a large part by our mental capacity. Our physical load has become our cognitive load. How much our brains can hold, remember, recite, and recall affects us every day. We become overwhelmed with what is called decision fatigue, where we what we thought we loved about all of our choices now becomes burdensome as our mind seeks to make decision after decision. Sometimes maybe there's only a little drawback if we're wrong, but often there is the possibility of severe consequences should we not be able to keep up with our cognitive load. So, is it any wonder that this would cause headaches and mental overwhelm with our thoughts seem to be splitting us in two? Or that it would cause vertigo and the feeling that our mind is spinning with all our options and choices and decisions that still have to be made? And lastly, the face. So we'll begin with the eyes. What are you willing to see? Nearsightedness, easier time seeing what's right in front of you, and not so easy looking on to what the future could hold. Farsightedness, well, the opposite. Eyes on the future, but not liking what's perhaps right in your face. Our nose, an itch you can't scratch, generally connected with situations or individuals that really bug you and you feel like you just can't do anything about it. Phrases like, she really gets up my nose, or I just don't like the smell of him might come to mind. And you might have noticed at the beginning of this second video, my nose was itching because Facebook was really up my nose. Mouth. Think of your mouth as the portcullis of a castle. You know, that part that slams down on a drawbridge. What do you feel you cannot say? What do you have to bite off before you blurt out? What leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you hear it? Ears. What are you willing to not listen to? Or what do you hear that you're trying to shut out because it hurts you to hear it? Now, some of all this above might make you go, aha, you knew that already. Where others might perhaps be new to you, but I believe we all know this somewhere deep within that universal encyclopedia of knowledge that we all have that I've spoken about prior. So now, hopefully, Facebook did record this one, and we'll see if we have any questions. Oh, hi, Hannah. So good to see your name and know you're there. Hi, Roger. Oh, boy, do I miss your face and energy. It's been a long time. Yes, Emily, Byron Katie is my second favorite teacher as well. And thank you for the compliment. Chris, is there any significance to the physical location of the pain in your head when experiencing a headache? That's a really good question. I think there's a lot of different types of headaches, right? And those of you that suffer from that know this. I like to think that if the headaches are connected in some way to the eyes or your optical nerve, where it feels like maybe there's an ice pick going through an eye, it's often related to vision, and not just the vision of your eyes, but your personal ability to have a vision. If you're working on something, what's your vision on it? How well do you feel you can see what's happening or what will happen? Now, headaches that feel like they're splitting our brain in two, well, I think that's often connected to what we spoke about earlier. Headaches in the back of our head connected with our neck, well, I think those often relate to the feeling that we can't make a decision that we want to make, that we're suffering with, should I stay or should I go? And that we have no other way to turn. Hi, Maggie. Oh, it's so good to see your name. Dawn, I miss you too. It's been a very long time. I hope all you are well, and thank you so much for showing up and giving me some likes and some loves and some comments, because it's kind of hard to keep talking to myself on here. So when I see you're there, oh, it just fills my heart. Oh, Hannah, when we are having a headache, are there questions should we ask ourselves to find the root of that pain? Very good question. So, yes, I would suggest that if possible, you immediately separate yourself from whatever it was you were doing, or separate your thoughts from whatever it was you were thinking. If you can, go into meditation. If you can't, perhaps a glass of water and just a walk around the house. Something that helps segregate you for a few minutes so you can clear your mind with the troubling thoughts that have brought you there. And then I recommend that you ask yourself what your limiting beliefs are and if they're true. And if you believe they're true, are they absolutely certain, beyond a shadow of any doubt? And you will mostly find that they're not. And so if they're not, well, how would you feel if it wasn't true? And let your thoughts, just play with them. Let your thoughts go on that path of what it would mean to have a different outcome, a different belief system, a different possibility. And like I've said before, stop laying fear pavers for a path you don't want to walk. So perhaps walk back to the point where anything is possible and see if that freedom of thought doesn't help release you from some of those constricting, tightening thoughts. And maybe you do that along with whatever it is that normally eases you, laying in a dark room with a lavender pillow over your eyes, or taking a warm shower to soften those tense muscles while you forgive yourself for your perceived imperfections and allow yourself to believe that there's more possibilities. Hi, Spence. So, your question, when you feel pain, should you be able to choose not to suffer immediately, or is it over time? That's an excellent question, truly excellent. So, our suffering comes separately. Our suffering is our belief systems about our pain. So, an example I might give is it's raining. Now, if this is your wedding day and it's outside, well, that's the worst thing that could happen. However, if you've just planted a garden, it's wonderful. And if you're driving somewhere, maybe it's just no big deal. You don't love it or hate it. Our feelings about what's happening to us contribute to our suffering. So, could it be over immediately? Unlikely. And the reason is, unlike the headache, where perhaps you can just begin to think different thoughts and open your mind to possibilities, if you have some sort of chronic or even acute pain, there's a belief system that you have about it. Um, a lot of times they connect back to the parts of the body that we've spoken about uh, in these last 5 videos. So I recommend that if you haven't watched them, go back and see if there's something that you can engage with. But ultimately, learning to believe and understand that you don't have to suffer. It's not inevitable. Pain is, but you can choose not to immerse yourself in it. You can choose not to talk about it chronically, complain about it all the time. As I've said, I think in the first video, when I was going through my autoimmune condition and I was in a lot of pain every single day, and people would ask me how I was, I'd say, stop asking me, because I don't want to lie to you and I don't want to talk about it anymore. So I really think one of the first and best things we can do for ourselves is stop thinking about how much we hurt. And I know that's hard because hurting is all encompassing sometimes. But do what you can to separate yourself from that pain and focus on what you want, how you want to feel, and how you want your life to look like, pain-free. And call that to you, not more of what you have. So I know that's kind of a lot, and yet at the same time, it just brushes the surface. But it's a wonderful question, Spence, and I hope some of that maybe answered your question. Headaches related to hormones. So yeah, certainly there are many hormonal imbalances that will be catalysts and triggers. But oftentimes the emotional suffering component is what we are going through as women, going through hormonal issues and things like perimenopause. So there can certainly be genetic, hormonal, food activated, a lot of different co-contributors to headaches. And I recommend that you seek out whatever feels right to you in terms of Western medicine to assist you while you begin to learn how to release the suffering thoughts that add to it. Amazing insights. Thank you, Hannah. And I would love if, when you might get your next headache, I will never say that it's inevitable because that is a suffering thought. When you might get your next headache, I would love it if you try some of these techniques and maybe come back and tell me how they worked. And you're welcome, Spence. Boy, I love seeing your faces. So many people in comments today. Makes me so happy. So, to close, I've thought long and hard about what I wanted to explore with you next. And ultimately, I decided, now that you've gotten a taste of my particular medicine and thought pain therapy, that I'm going to leave it up to you, my tribe. So I'll end today by posting a question that I'm going to let run for 2 weeks while I read your requests and organize a new subject to explore or expand on. Now, it doesn't have to take up 5 lives. It can just be one that just really focuses on maybe your question or your need. So there's no question or request too silly or too complex. And I'm excited to share with you again in 2 weeks on Monday, September 6th at 5:15. And in the meantime, as I always say, please take care of yourself for me. Okay?